Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We know you're very busy, and we really appreciate you taking the time to join us for this webinar. It's episode 20 of our Graph Gurus series, and the title of today's webinar is Building a Real-Time Customer 360 for Attribution and Engagement with the TigerGraph Cloud Starter Kit. And I'm going to pass, before we get started, some housekeeping issues. All the phones are muted, but we do want to hear from you. So please submit your questions through the Q&A button in the Zoom user interface. If you have any issues with Zoom, don't hesitate to reach out and contact us, and we'll do our very best to resolve these issues as quickly as possible. We'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. But again, don't be shy about submitting your questions to us at any stage during the webinar. And last and not least, the webinar is being recorded. It'll be uploaded to the webinar section of our website later today. And also we'll send the URL to each of you in an email once we've finished. And I think at this point, I'm going to introduce our illustrious presenters. On the left, the very handsome and capable Gaurav Deshpande, who is my manager, Vice President of Marketing. He takes care of all things marketing, and that is true at TigerGraph. He's led 2 startups through explosive growth, i2 Technologies, which he took to an IPO, and Trico Technologies, which I think was acquired by IBM. And he's a big data analytics veteran, with multiple patents, I think 8 or 9 patents in supply chain management, big data analytics. And his head is not huge, but he is a huge graph head. Also with me today is Victor Moe, who also very handsome, looking dude and very capable. He's our sales engineer. He's got a background in SQL databases, enterprise security, and enterprise search. No patents yet, but he is working on one, I'm sure, in his spare time. So I think with this, I'll pass control of the webinar to Gaurav.
Thanks a lot, David, for that very fun introduction. We can always count on that nice Scottish humor to make the day brighter. So with that introduction, let's talk a little bit about building a real-time customer 360. I'm going to give you guys a high overview, a very brief overview, and then I know you want to look at the product demonstration from Victor Moe, and we're going to show you that in a moment. Basically, what we're talking about is really combining all of your data from different data slices, whether it's the data coming in from your Salesforce system or another type of CRM solution, coming in from your website, from your e-commerce solution, coming in from your stores if you're a retailer, or physical locations like your hospitals if you're a healthcare provider. Regardless of where the data is coming in from, you have different slices of customer data that are available. Not just customer data that is about static data or master data, but also transactional data about what orders they have placed, what claims they have submitted, whether it's welfare claims for government, or it's healthcare claims for an insurance company, or other types of claims that have been submitted for insurance, for example, for property insurance. Regardless of what type of information they have submitted, what you want to do is combine your master data around your patients, around your customers, around your around all of your customer-related entities, and tie that to the transactional data to really understand how customer is interacting effectively with your infrastructure. So that's what a real-time customer 360 data hub is. When we say real-time, we are really talking about real-time, and we share a couple of examples of that in a moment. You have the first and foremost, this solution builds on top of your current investment. So the question is, here comes another vendor that proposes to build a real-time customer 360. Are we going to replace what we already have? The answer is no. We'll be building on top of your current investment. So for example, if you have spent the last few years building out petabytes of data into a huge data lake, Hadoop data lake, for example, a Cloudera data lake, you are going to connect the dots on top of that with real-time customer 360 hub by essentially augmenting that. Same thing goes for your data warehouse, same thing goes for your database infrastructure. We are not replacing anything. We are building on top of the current investment to drive more business value out of it. What we are doing essentially is finding new relationships among data, and that can be used in a variety of different ways. It can be used for fraud detection. It can be used for credit scoring. It can be used for product marketing. It can be used for cross-sell, upsell recommendations. And we'll cover examples of that as we go through. Today's focus is we're going to show you a customer journey and how it can be used for a B2B, measuring a customer's engagement and attribution for a B2B type journey. It applies equally well for a B2C also. Victor will cover that as a part of the presentation. Last but not the least, we are talking about analyzing temporal, which is a fancy name for time-based data, and spatial data or geospatial data, and finding insights in that. So lots of business benefits. Let's go ahead, go to the next chart and look at an example of that. So Santa Clara County, one of our customers, we are here sitting in Redwood City, and right south of us is the Silicon Valley. Santa Clara County squarely covers all of Silicon Valley, with San Jose at its center, Palo Alto at its top. This is a customer that has transformed and built a customer 360 for 500,000 welfare recipients. So what they do is they build a real-time customer 360 to understand the relationship between the welfare beneficiaries, their households, and essentially analyze that to find duplicate places where people are submitting for duplicate welfare benefits, and find places where people are not submitting for welfare benefits where they're eligible. So they're doing both of those things. They're essentially improving the efficiency of our dollars that go into funding the welfare for the people who need it, and then stopping the fraudsters and scamsters that are trying to dupe the system and keep the money away from people who are deserving of that money. So that's what Santa Clara County does. If you can go to the next chart. I wanted to briefly mention that there's a nice YouTube testimonial. You can find it, you search on YouTube with Santa Clara County and TigerGraph, you'll find it very easily. Main thing to understand there is, of course, they have a relational database, and it works very well for them for the intended cause. In fact, they have 20 different systems that carry welfare benefit data and information about different beneficiaries and their households. So the question is not whether you can do it with a relational database. The question is whether you can connect the dots across the relational database. And that's exactly what Graph Database does for Santa Clara County. Second code that you have here is about our visualization tool, Graph Studio, where you can take a particular welfare recipient, Joe Smith, a fictitious name, of course, and then going from there to all of their household members, either people who are living with them or their biological children or their biological parents, depending on the case maybe, who are living in different households. And then look across the entire picture attached to a particular welfare recipient like Joe Smith, all of his household, as well as everybody else who is connected to that household. This understanding is something that these questions they could not answer before in a relational database. We do it visually for Santa Clara County. We also do it using our elegant graph query language, which is very much SQL-like, called GSQL. Last but not the least, they had an MDM solution already in place. Right? They had Reltio, RELTIO. It's a brilliant solution for doing what it does, but it's not meant for deep relationship analysis. And it's not meant for marrying static data with transactional data such as welfare claims. So that's what we do for Santa Clara County. And that's how you build real-time customer 360, by extending and augmenting the existing MDM solution, and by extending and augmenting existing claim-based solutions that are managing transactional data, which is typically part of a relational database for a welfare benefit administrator. Now from government, we're gonna go over to a completely different domain. If you can go to the next chart. Wish.com is a startup based right here in San Francisco. They started their journey with us 4 years back. When they were a startup, they built their next generation recommendation engine. So what they're doing is building a customer 360 for Wish.com for each of their customers. So if you are a customer, you'll experience this firsthand. When you visit them, every time you visit, every time you browse, every time you search, every time you buy something, all of those interactions are analyzed in real time to build your next recommendation. And this is what we mean by real-time customer 360. It's the ability to consider customer interaction across all touch points and build a tailored recommendation. They have built their business into several $billion in annual revenue as of last year starting from a startup that was looking for customers by 4 years back. It's a fantastic story. If you want to learn more, please visit TigerGraph.com. We have a case study under resources or forwish.com. With that, let's go to the next chart. I'm going to talk a little bit about challenges, current challenges that we're talking about, right? So Customer 360 is one of the starter kits that's available in TigerGraph Cloud. It's trying to connect up data across typically a B2B type companies such as ourselves, TigerGraph. We are selling to businesses. So we have accounts that represent businesses. We have campaigns like our developer edition, like the webinar that you are listening to. That's a campaign. Campaign member essentially is how you become part of the campaign. By attending this one, you became part of a campaign member. That's what marries a contact with a particular campaign. We have sales meetings with some of you as we are progressing through your understanding of graph databases and how to apply them. We have emails and messaging going on with you. And finally, last but not the least, we have lead source and lead, which is an early stage contact before it becomes an opportunity. So all of this data is being married up inside a relational database, and it's a very complex join. It's called a wide join, and it takes very long time, and it's very expensive. And to quote one of my favorite quotes from an executive in one of our customers is that you can do everything with a relational database what you can do with TigerGraph. Okay, you can do everything with the relational database what you can do with TigerGraph. The question is how many millennia, which is 1,000 years, do you have? Right? So it's the amount of time you have to wait. With that little colorful quote from my customer, let's go to the next chart. TigerGraph Cloud. TigerGraph Cloud is all about velocity, right? You don't have to wait 1,000 years. You don't have to wait 1,000 minutes. You can start with 5 minutes. Literally go to tigergraph.com/cloud, click on start free, get started there. And Victor will show you today in real time how easy it is to actually start that journey. Let's go to the next chart. What we're doing essentially here is making graph database and analytics available to everybody. You have all been using graph database and analytics every day when you do the Google search, every day when you go to Zillow website and search for homes. It's showing you similar homes that you're likely to be interested in. What we're doing is we're making it available so that you can start in minutes. And that's what I'll recommend. If you haven't done already, go to tigergraph.com, essentially register, and there's a free tier for you to learn graph database and analytics and get started now. For all non-commercial usage, that free tier is available for lifetime, so make use of that. You can build in hours, which means we have provided starter kits, and today's emphasis is the Customer 360 Starter Kit, which Victor will review. In fact, he created it. So he's the best person to review it. And last but not the least, you can literally scale up to a large production in terabytes in a matter of days using that. You can support up to 100,000 plus deep analytics queries per second using TigerGraph Cloud. With that little introduction to TigerGraph Cloud, I'm going to hand it off to Victor, who's going to take over and share his screen and start to walk you through the product, which you have all been waiting for.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you, Gaurav. So this is TigerGraph Cloud, right? You can go to this URL here, sign up. There's a free tier account. You get into the dashboard. Today, I am going to talk about the starter kit for Customer 360 Attribution. Okay, so you saw I created the solution. Select this, right? Give it a name, Customer Attribution. And then you can select the free tier. Okay, there are other configurations that you can consider, but the free one is, it's nice, it's free. So I'm going to select US East West for that, and you specify like 100 GB for your disk size. Give it a domain name, okay, and then you just hit create. Okay, and then you will take a couple minutes to spin up the instance. Once you have done that, what you do is it will show up as one of your solutions based on the name that you give it, right? You can go to the right, click on this little button here and hit start. once it starts, you can just click on this and you will open up in a separate tab the URL that you have specified earlier. Okay, so I'm not going to spend 5 minutes to have all that come up for you. Instead, I'm just going to show an instance that I already have. Okay, here we go. So yeah, so welcome to the demo. I am going to show how you can load up customer data from your Salesforce instance, potentially, have it come in from sales, like something like a HubSpot as well. We're going to show how you can use that loaded graph data for exploration and analytics. So in particular, we're going to show how you can easily use graph to visualize a customer journey, especially from the perspective of customer attribution and engagement. Okay. So first thing you want to do is you want to have some CSV files exported, right? So here I have a few, right? So there's account.csv, right? You specify that it has a header, the enclosing character. Here's my contact CSV. Let's say it has a header, and here's my double quote string. So you see some sample context data. Okay. So once you upload this into TigerGraph, right, before you can actually load up your graph, you need to come up with a schema, right? So I'm going to click on this tab here to design schema. So here is.
And Victor, just to interject here, the starter kit already contains the schema, right? We just
right. Yes, exactly.
What's already
exactly. So once you start everything you see here will be pre-populated in that starter kit in the cloud, right? I'm just explaining that you need a schema, right? So this is a label property graph, right? You can have attributes on your vertex types. You actually can have attributes on your edges as well. At a high level, the idea of a vertex type maps to your SQL table. Your edge types map to the idea of a foreign key to primary mapping. Okay, so here I have accounts. Okay, accounts have multiple contexts. Context belongs to accounts, and they are converted from a Salesforce lead. Okay, a lead comes into Salesforce. You get targeted by multiple campaigns from your marketing department, right? So a lead can have multiple campaigns targeted. A campaign obviously is going to be targeted to multiple leads. So this is a many-to-many relationship, right? So campaign member is essentially a SQL join table. Okay, so we can optimize. However, no attempt has been made to optimize the schema for graph. Rather, the idea here is to have something that resembles very closely to what you already have in your own Salesforce instance. The goal here is to kind of encourage you to go through this exercise, give it a try. Okay, so once you have a schema defined, the next thing you can do is you want to map those CSV files. This is already mapped for you in the starter kit, right? So we have different types of connectors to bring data into the TigerGraph database. One of the easiest ones is to use a CSV file, right? So here, I'm just going to drag and drop and say, my contact.csv file, I'm going to map it to the contact vertex type. So I'm going to expand this graph a little bit. You can see I'm just going to essentially just drag, point and click, and wire up these columns to attribute. Okay, you do this for every one of the attributes that you're interested in doing. You repeat the same exercise. For example, context.csv is also used to populate the belongs to. The contact belongs to an account. So same thing. The account ID maps to the account string on the edge type. The ID maps to the contact ID. Okay, so you pretty much repeat the same exercise for every edge type, for every vertex type in the schema. Once you do that, you publish, and then you can start loading the data. Again, everything will be preloaded for you once you start that starter kit. But if you're doing this for the first time, you want to say click on this button here to start the loading process. I've already done it. You can see it says finished on every one of these files, and the breakdown is over here, right? So it's about 34,000 vertices and about 104,696 edges. You can see the breakdown over there. Okay, so once you have populated your database, the next thing you want to do is to explore the graph. Okay, so let's start by exploring an account, a fictitious account called VRG payments. Okay, I'm just going to close this side panel here for more real estate. So one of the things you can do is just double click on the vertex, and it automatically expands all the one hop nearest neighbors. Okay, let me zoom in. And here's our account. All these guys here are contacts, right? So to help visualization, let me do this. Bear with me for a few seconds. First name, last name, title. Create date. Okay. So now we can see some annotations here, right? So you can see there's multiple touch points, right? This account has 2 opportunities. Okay, this one's called fraud circle detection. It's from the computer software industry, and you can see multiple touch points, right? Takes a village to close deals with these companies. Everything from software engineers to architects to director of engineering and so on. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's say we want to drill down on this. Okay, see how did this deal come about from a marketing perspective? What led to it? What helped close it, so to speak? So I'm going to do the same thing. Double click. You can see the subgraph for VRG for that particular opportunity highlighted, and I'm going to use this trick here to say show only the selected subgraph. So what I'm doing is essentially drilling down on the subgraph that I'm interested in. Okay, so I'm going to do one more thing. The contact, and create date. Okay, so this opportunity has 3 individuals that play a role in it, right? Looking at those individuals, I can see that Sam Eisenberg was the one that we created first. So I'm going to guess that this is the guy who played the pivotal role. So again, what I'm going to do is double click on Sam Eisenberg. It opens up his subgraph. And I'm going to use the same trick here to say show only this selection, right? So again, I'm drilling down into the subgraph that I'm interested in. So now I have Sam Eisenberg's subgraph, all the campaign that he has participated in, right? So now I can double click on these guys, and it will actually show the campaign, right? This one's a sales meeting. Here we have, you know, he showed up for, he signed up for a test drive account. And I can continue to do it forever. You can see that's quite a number of these campaigns that he participated in, right? So rather than expanding all of that and then arranging in a nice, neat fashion for you, I've already done that actually. So here it is. So I've arranged it in chronological order, right? So you can clearly see the journey of Sam Eisenberg, right? He started out by, signing up for the downloading the developer edition from the website, signing up for a free trial. He took a test drive. He created a test drive account. One of our salespeople engaged him to qualify. He sat in on a few webinars. GSQL Part 1 is one of them. That must have made an impression. He went on and downloaded the GSQL white paper. This takes us about to July. He downloaded more stuff, the benchmarks that showed how TigerGraph performs with some of our competitors. Then he set in on, remember, this is for VRG Corporation, VRG Payments, a fictitious financial services company that's interested in anti-money laundering, anti-fraud type solutions, right? So TigerGraph being ideal for one of those for AML. He set in on another webinar for AML specifically. After that, he requested a demo. And then he set in on a Graph Gurus number 3, which is detect fraud and AML. Okay, and shortly after that, the deal closed. Okay, so that's that. Now, if you see yourself, right, doing this sort of manual exploration over and over again, one thing you can consider doing is to write a query, right? This is where GSQL comes in, right? GSQL is our query language. It's actually more than a query language. I've written it so that given a customer, and the sample data is actually inside the comments here. So you can just copy, paste, put it here. Given a customer and an opportunity, we'll print out the attribution graph, so to speak. Okay, the customer journey. So this is essentially the same graph that I showed earlier. Okay, so when you run this in Graph Studio, obviously you get the graph visualization, but you will also get the JSON result. Okay, every one of our queries will spit out JSON output. What can you do with this? You can feed this JSON into peripheral systems. You can put it into something like a Tableau. Perhaps you have a customized UI of your own. So I'm going to show this guy here. No. Okay. So here is an alternative UI that we came up with in, this very simple UI implemented in D3. We came up with it in literally 2 days. Okay. But what it does behind the scenes is you put up a name of the contact and click search. It will return basically within this timeline all the campaigns, and you can see in the horizontal timeline what all took place, right? So same information, but just different visualization, right? So he signed up for a free trial here, had a sales meeting to qualify, set in on GSQL, he set in on AML, and then the anti-fraud graph gurus, right? So you can see very clearly the different things that attributed to this thing closing, okay? So what else can you do? How about this, right? So if Sam Eisenberg were to represent an ideal customer profile for you, is there a way that we can find similar prospects that are similar to Sam Eisenberg, and perhaps you can use that as a list of this list of would-be Sam Eisenbergs and propose next best action, recommend next best action to this list of people. Okay. So we can actually do that. This is called similarity, right? How many other prospects are there that are similar to Sam Eisenberg? We actually have a graph library algorithm library. If you go to GitHub for TigerGraph, one of the things you'll see there is this thing called GSQL graph algorithms. So what it is essentially a set of algorithms that are already implemented for you in GSQL, and here's the categorizations of those. It includes things like centrality, page rank, to things like shortest path algorithms, to similarity, right? This is what we want, right? So there are 2 flavors for similarity. There's cosine similarity, and there's Jacquard, right? So I'm going to go with Jacquard. I'm not going to go too much into what is cosine similarity or what is Jacquard, right? But essentially here, expressed in GSQL, is the algorithm that I want. So one thing you can do is you can literally just copy and go in here and say add a new query, and I'm going to call it similar customers to, and then go and create it, right? And paste it in. Now you will have to do some tweaking as well, which I have done actually. So I've written the query for you. I have to tweak it because the nature of my object, my schema is slightly different from the one that was up in GitHub. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and give it a run here. Let's say I'm interested in finding out, how many other prospects are there that are close to Sam Eisenberg's with respect to the webinars that he has attended, with respect to the demo signups and trials that he has signed up for. Okay. So again, the sample input is all in the command line. in the comments. So I'm going to type Sam Eisenberg. Open up and say webinar. Open up another one and and I would say, give me the top 5 candidates that are most similar to Sam Eisenberg with respect to the webinars that he has attended, with respect to all the demos, different type of things that he has signed up for. Okay, I'm gonna hit, and there you go. Here's the JSON result. Okay, we calculated a similarity score, and we've sorted it in descending order, right? So number 1 is Priyanka Patel, similarity score of 0.30769, Stephen Tong 0.25, Scott Tate 0.25, and so on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the algorithm. So if you are not familiar with Jaccard similarity, right, I put in some resources in here. I found a nifty YouTube video that describes this. So here it is, right? Jaccard similarity essentially is you're given 2 sets. How similar are they, right? So this is set theory, right? The Jaccard similarity index, score can be computed as follows, right? The cardinality of the intersection sets divided by the cardinality of the union, right? So that comes up to, if you know the set size for A, B, and the intersection size, you can compute the similarity Jaccard, right? So in this case, we came up with 0.4. So you can say these 2 sets are 40% similar, okay? So we've done that essentially in GSQL. This is where it's calculated, right? So you can see the similarity score is the intersection divided by set size for A, set size for B, minus the intersection size, okay? So yeah. Anything you want to add to this at all, Gaurav?
No, the whole idea is the simplicity of taking graph queries and algorithms that are pre-built, right? Everything from PageRank that Google is built on, their entire business on, is a 26-line implementation in graph query language for TigerGraph. Cosine similarity, Jaccard similarity. As a data scientist, we are adding constantly for you every month new algorithms that would help make your life easy. And it's as simple as clicking and adding a GSQL query. So that's what it's all about. It's this ease of use with TigerGraph Cloud combined with the graph algorithm library and starter kits, all of which are open source.
Okay, so one last thing I'm going to show is that, I can continue expanding this graph here, but eventually you will come to this kind of a picture, right? Here's Priyanka. Priyanka has 4 similar campaigns that she shares with Sam Eisenberg. Vincent Chen has 3. This is how Priyanka Patel was computed to have a higher score. Likewise, Scott Tate has 0.25, which is total of 3. If you go back to the results.
Victor, can you, I think they're not seeing your screen anymore. Would you share it, please, again? Stop sharing and reshare it. They just lost it, and we were seeing it before.
Oh, really?
Just stop sharing and then reshare it, and it should work fine.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Can you see now?
There we go. Now we see Priyanka.
Okay. So here, here are the results. If we were to go to the graph visualization and expand it, eventually you can come up with a graph like this, a subgraph like this, right? So here's Priyanka Patel. The reason she scored the highest was because she shares 4 similar campaigns with Sam Eisenberg, whereas Vincent Chen, you can see he shares 3, and same with Scott Tate. Okay, so to kind of summarize this, right? GSQL is not just a query language, right? It's Turing complete, so meaning you can actually express sometimes fairly complex graph computations and analytics natively within the query. It compiles into C++, which is high performance, and when it makes it suitable for cases where you have high performance requirements for your graph analytics, especially across like big data terabytes at scale. Okay, that is the demo that I was going to do. Is there anything you want to?
Oh, that's fantastic. Can we show the upcoming events real quick, David, right after the demo chart?
So here it is.
Excellent. So we got three multiple things for you in store. First and foremost, we got Graph Gurus comes to you, the office hours for Graph Gurus. So all through this, we have gone over the script today. We'll be sharing the deck with you. We'll also be updating the starter kit with the new query that you saw for similar customers. So we'll be also doing that later today. But in addition to that, when you go through the starter kit for Customer 360 or for recommendation engine or for entity resolution, I'm sure you have questions. There's a free office hour every Thursday for 11 a.m. Pacific. You can just come in, register for that, and then come and see a Graph Guru about your question. Secondly, David is headed to Austin. So if you are in Austin, Texas next Tuesday, October 22nd, we have a lot of data scientists signed up already, but we have last few seats remaining for that. Graph Gurus comes to you. So I would recommend that if you have a team member or yourself that's in Austin, definitely make use of that. It's on 22nd of October, next Tuesday in Austin, Texas. You'll meet David, you'll meet Kevin and others that are part of TigerGraph team. You'll also meet Expero people, who is our partner that's building solution for some of the largest companies in the world. And they'll also be willing, they would also be excited to work with you regardless of your size. Last but not the least, the next webinar is an exciting one. Supply chain management is an established industry. I come from that industry. I started my career there in 1996. I have several patents in the area. The area of supply chain management that's not explored very well as yet is the dependency between the supply chain and the commercial side. So we'll be presenting use cases related to that, new use cases for supply chain that TigerGraph is solving at customers. Definitely join that, especially if you are in supply chain management area, manufacturing area, or anything related to movement of goods or distribution of goods or production of goods. You definitely want to be part of that. So that is on next Wednesday, which will be same time as today, 11 a.m. Pacific. So those are the things that I wanted to remind you quickly. And then I'm going to hand it off to our Scottish host, Mr. David Ronald, to actually close out with some questions we have.
Before we close, we do have a few questions from people. So let's just go back and look at that for a minute or two. So again, if you haven't already submitted questions, please do so by clicking the Q&A feature on Zoom, and we'll answer them. So one of the questions we've had is, can the customer 360 journey, and I think this is a question for you, Gaurav, can the customer 360 journey be applied to other use cases? For example, within our enterprise, we want to identify employees at risk of churn. So could you identify patterns associated with an employee leaving a company and then use the TigerGraph solution to predict that an employee is about to leave?
Excellent. So I think we talked about customer 360 journey that we've been using in-house to actually identify prospect journey towards buying TigerGraph. But I think, David, you brought up a very interesting point, which is the same thing that applies to a customer's buying journey also applies to an employee's journey in terms of understanding how they are progressing in their career. And you can actually relate an employee to other employees, not to snoop on them, but to understand what is the sphere of influence for somebody like David, like Victor, who are influencing people that are well beyond what their immediate organization is. So you can identify the good networks of people, you can identify spheres of influence and good teams, and actually promote those best practices, as well as understanding who are employees who are highly engaged. And those who are not engaged, how do we get them back engaged? Again, the idea here is not to snoop on the privacy of the employees, but to identify people who are highly engaged and elevate those teams and those people, and then people who might be disengaged, find them and find ways to bring them back to the fold of enthusiasm.
Perfect. Thank you, Gaurav. A question for you, Victor. This is more technical in nature. At the beginning of your presentation, you showed the schema in that starter kit. And the question is, can the schema be changed? Can I change the schema if I need to?
Yes, absolutely. You can. You can change it anytime, even post-production. You can do that as well. Obviously, there's some amount of work to kind of bring it back in sync, but yes, it can be done.
Great, thank you. Gaurav, there's a question here about GSQL versus the new move to have a standardized query language, GQL. What's TigerGraph's involvement or position or opinion on that?
So TigerGraph has been working closely with all of the industry players on GQL. First of all, we're really excited that there's a standardized graph query language whose schedule is actually moving faster than expected. We are actually contributing to proposals to make it better. An example is accumulators, right? Something that TigerGraph uniquely has as a part of GSQL. These are local and global variable as well as computing functions that leverage the native parallel nature of the TigerGraph platform. We have proposed an addition to the GQL to bring that feature as a part of the standard graph query language. So that's just one example of our leadership. We're also working on making GQL more SQL-like. So things like select clause, from clause, where clause, while clause, everything that you are familiar with. And as a SQL developer, GSQL has the same structure, and GQL should adopt something that's familiar for a SQL developer as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel and create new construct for the new syntax for something that's a well-established construct in the SQL world. So we're also bringing your point of view from 99% of the world that is in SQL right now to help them bridge over to the graph in a more seamless manner.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we have one more question. And this is back to the use cases. So the question here is, I'm in healthcare, and we're looking at tracking customer using customer 360 to track the member's journey to wellness. Is that something that you could apply your solution to?
So there's a very well-established way of doing this. Traditionally, people have tried to do this using data warehouses and relational databases. The problem with that is when you're trying to combine data from 30, 40, 50 different sources for a large customer and 15, 20 sources for a mid-sized healthcare provider, it becomes an unsustainable thing. And therefore, member journey has always been that talked about a lot, but seldom implemented. That's changing with TigerGraph. One of our largest customers in healthcare is actually implementing a wellness journey for members across 50 million patients for a care path, which means you can figure out which members are on the right type of care path and which members need help in terms of their, let's say, recovery after a knee surgery that's not going well. You can identify that proactively and address it while you can find good patterns and elevate those. Again, graph database is simply about finding relationship patterns, and member journey is one part of that. That's a major part for healthcare that we are enabling, along with customer journeys for B2B and B2C customers.
All right, great. Thank you, Gaurav. I think that's the last of the questions. So we'll just finish up the webinar. I just wanted to touch on one thing. Gaurav mentioned that we're doing an in-person version of Graph Gurus in Austin next week. We're doing one at the end of the month in Columbus, Ohio, and we're doing one middle of November 21st in San Diego. There's people who enjoy this type of online event and learn about TigerGraph through webinars and online interactions, and there's other people who also enjoy in-person events. So don't be hesitant about reaching out to us if you want us to come to a city near to you. We'd love to work with you to schedule an event in your location. And just to wrap things up, we have a variety of additional resources available to people. You can start free on TigerGraph Cloud, as Gaurav mentioned. You can start in just a few minutes, build out a solution in a few hours, and deploy it to production in just a few days. You can test drive our product on our website. You can, if you need to have an on-premise version for whatever reason, then you can download the developer edition, and there's some other resources here listed to enable you to get started. We'd love for you to test our product, use it, and then use TigerGraph to solve the difficult challenges you face in your career. And then also feel free to follow us on social media. We've listed a few platforms. So that's it. We're about 50 minutes, almost 50 minutes. Again, we know how busy everybody is, and we're very flattered that you chose to spend the last 50 minutes with us. We truly hope you found today's webinar to be informative, and would encourage you to reach out to us if you have suggestions, questions. This is meant to be helpful to you, to help you get started to use TigerGraph. But with that, I'm going to end the webinar and want to thank you for joining us. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.